Hello, welcome to Wrestle MSX. I am Michael.
I'm Sally.
Penta defeated Chad Gable.
American Made defeated the War Raiders.
AJ Styles defeated Finn Balor.
Io Sky and Rhea Ripley defeated Roxanne, Perez and Giulia.
Now, as usual, if you want to know what actually happened, subscribe and then carry on watching. Jey gets attacked by Bron Breakker.
We begin our Money in the Bank tournament qualifying rounds on SmackDown.
And El Grande Americano doesn't show up as he's touring in Mexico. We see CM Punk walking through Gorilla and down to the ring. He's mad with himself for trusting poor Heyman. And just as Punk reels off what he's going to do to him, he heads out. Heyman, that is. Punk goads him to enter the ring, but of course Seth's music hits with he and Breakker then appearing. Seth calls Punk trash, scum and human excrement. Nice. Then claims Punk likes to play the victim and wants to play the martyr. Seth sets his dog loose with Breakker entering the ring and beating on Punk. Punk fights back, but then Seth gets involved, which is too much for Punk to handle. Out of nowhere, Sami Zayn enters the ring to even up the odds, but he's dealt with by Breakker as Heyman then hands a chair to Rollins, who lines up Punk for a battering. The beating doesn't arrive though, as Jey Uso makes the save. That doesn't quite work out either though, as Breakker and Rollins get the best of Jey. But just as he's about to be put to the sword, Punk and Zayn re-enter the ring, chairs in hand, and scare the new alliance away. We still haven't got a name for them.
No. They need one.
They are building this up, aren't they? They've got to be something.
Yeah, they can't just be
the guys.
The alliance.
We've made that up.
I know, but...
Be good though.
Yeah.
Go with that.
First match of the night, Penta versus Chad Gable. Niall with Gable. The match is slightly delayed as we have to wait for Pat McAfee to take his seat at ringside. Not sure why he wasn't there at the start of Raw. Nothing like overplaying your part, right?
Thanks for coming though, Pat.
But anyway, on with the show. We learn that El Grande Americano is on a tour of Mexico as Gable takes it to Penta with a back suplex and cover for 2. Gable then tries to remove Penta's mask, but fights him off, sends him from the ring and then jumps over the rope after him, only to be met by a Gable headbutt.
Back from the break and we're in the ring with a Penta headstand corner gut attack followed with a 2 count cover before a bridged suplex cover from Gable also for 2. Penta gets another 2 count after countering a flying headbutt from Gable into a codebreaker before we get a 2 count apiece from both superstars. One from a moonsault by Gable, the other a super kick from Penta. We end up on the top rope with Gable giving Penta some verbal, but Penta's having none of it, so pushes Gable down to the mat. Gable lands on his feet with Penta then jumping down into a Mexican destroyer and planting Gable. Penta covers, Penta wins.
We get a vignette from Giulia and Roxanne Perez next, who say they've come to take over.
In the Judgment Day den now, and Dom says he thought Balor was a little slow to react with the help at Backlash. Balor tells him not to worry as he still has the title.
We then learn of a tag match made for Saturday night's main event, Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker versus CM Punk and Sami Zayn, before we then join Punk and Zayn in the locker room. Zayn asks if they're good, with Punk replying that he's having a hard time trusting anyone at the moment. Zayn says that's fair enough as he had a hard time trusting Punk at War Games, but he did and it worked out for them in the end. Zayn adds they won't get anywhere unless they take them out at Saturday night's main event, with the 2 ending on a fist bump.
See, I thought it was going to be Punk and Reigns, but maybe in the future down the line. But
yeah.
The New Day sit at ringside as they watch the War Raiders take on American Made next in tag team action. The camera flicks between New Day arguing with Cole and Pat and the action in the ring before we settle on the ring and see Eric slamming Ivar into Brutus. The Creeds double team Eric before he gets suplexed on the outside of the ring by Julian just before we hit a break. When we come back, Ivar is in and landing a crossbody to Julian, sit down splat and spin kick to Brutus. Ivar then heads to the top rope, but Julius joins him and hits him with a superplex as his brother then lands a moonsault and covers for 2. That should be a 3.
Yeah.
A superplex and a moonsault.
I know, yeah.
But anyway...
Everyone then comes in with them all knocking each other down, and after a little back and forth, Eric ends up outside the ring with Brutus. Woods then leaves his commentary position to argue with Eric, but as he does, Kofi attacks Ivar, who's climbing to the top rope. Of course, the ref isn't looking. He's trying to deal with Woods. Brutus then attacks Eric, leaving him down, with the Creeds then hitting Ivar with the Brutus ball and then into cover for the win. The New Day make a sharp exit as soon as the bell ends the match.
Backstage, we see Seth Rollins telling Bron Breakker that Zayn and Punk have no idea what he's capable of, before telling him he has one more thing he wants him to do tonight before he takes off. We don't know what's said as Seth whispers into Bron's ear.
Jey Uso heads out next and addresses Logan Paul, saying he'll still be world champion after Saturday night's main event. Jey then gets cut off as Gunther heads out. Gunther says Jey is not a natural champion and adds that on June 9th he will face the winner of Saturday night's main event title match. Gunther says he'll outclass him, with Jey firing back that he will handle the YouTuber and then walk out of the match with Gunther the same way he walked out of WrestleMania.
Now, if you don't know, Jey has been booked for a title defence at Saturday night's main event against Logan Paul. We were told that during Backlash.
Yes. Yep.
They didn't really bring it up here. They just allude that you know, but I can't see Paul winning anyway. Next, we see a vignette from Io Sky saying that no one in this division will stop her or take the title from her.
We then take a moment to remember Terence Brunk, better known as Sabu.
Backstage, Jackie Redmond is with Ludwig Kaiser and she states that we haven't seen all that much of him this year. And then just as she's about to ask him a question, we hear pipes hitting the ground with the cameraman then running over to see what all the racket's about. We soon discover that Jey Uso has been attacked by Bron Breakker, with Backstagers then heading over to check to see if he's alright. Zayn and Punk then appear with looks of concern.
Finn Balor versus AJ Styles next. Balor with Carlito and JD McDonough. Aside from a dropkick from Styles before the break, not a great deal happens. But when we come back, we find Styles in control and covering for 2. Balor soon gains some momentum though by hanging Styles up on the rope before laying into him with stomps, punches and finally an abdominal stretch. AJ fights out with strikes and kicks, with the 2 then taking each other out with a clothesline.
After yet another break, we come back to find both men on the top rope, with Styles hitting a superplex and following up with a calf crusher. Balor makes it to the rope, forcing the break. Sling blade, shotgun dropkick and a missed coup de grace then see Styles locking the calf crusher once again, with Styles then transitioning into the Styles clash, only for Balor to kick out of the follow-up cover on 2.
Styles then sets up for another Styles clash, but JD and Carlito get involved, allowing Finn to hit AJ with a 1916 and cover for 2. As Styles and Balor are recovering in the ring, Penta appears on the crowd barrier and takes out the Judgment Day boys. We then cut back to the ring and we see Styles lay Finn out with a phenomenal forearm and cover Balor for the victory.
Next up, Becky Lynch. She feels she's been manipulated by the audience and then rips on the crowd further by saying they only know failure. She wraps up by saying the girls in the back are going to know what it's like to be held down by Becky Lynch. So she's going to bury them all.
Yeah. Vignette time from Rusev, and after babbling on, he says he'd rather people fall at his hand than fall out into the abyss.
We then see Tozawa with Adam Pearce and he's asking for Rusev. Pearce says no, as Tozawa's not medically cleared, when all of a sudden Sheamus walks in. Sheamus proposes a match between himself and Grayson Waller, with Pearce giving it the green light for next week.
Last match of the night, Giulia and Roxanne Perez versus Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. Sky and Perez start completely opposite from last week by brawling from the off. Perez gets the upper hand, taking Sky to her corner where she tags in Giulia before the pair beat on the women's champion. Rhea, not standing for this, gets involved and takes out Perez, leaving Sky and Giulia to get on with it. Only they don't. Perez slaps Rhea, who gives chase around the ring, only for Giulia to crossbody Rhea from the ring apron. Sky then dives out the ring, taking out Perez, only for Giulia to then dropkick Sky just as we hit a break.
I think we knew it after all that. We come back to find Sky in a wrist lock from Perez, which she eventually escapes from and finally tags in Mommy. Release German suplex, Razor's Edge and basement dropkick get Rhea a 2 count cover, with Rhea then going for a Razor's Edge from the top rope. Only Perez counters into a Hurricanrana and covers for 2, then gets another 2 off a springboard moonsault. Rhea manages to tag in Sky, with Perez doing likewise and bringing in Giulia.
Sky lands a missile dropkick and over the moonsault into cover, only for Perez to break the cover on 2. We get a double arm underhook from Giulia off the top rope before she hits, I think, a glorious buster. Rhea breaks the follow-up cover on 2. Sky heads up top once again, with Rhea tagging herself in. Rhea enters the ring and pushes Giulia into a crossbody from Perez, who had just launched herself from the opposite corner. Rhea takes advantage by headbutting Giulia, riptiding her and then covering for the 1, 2, 3. Raw goes off the air with Rhea giving the women's world title a hard, long look.
So that one's bubbling up again.
Again.
Good to see Giulia and Perez. I say we don't watch NXT. They seem to know what they're doing.
Are they on Raw?
Are they on Raw? Are they not on Raw?
I'm not sure.
I'm going to assume they are because they've been appearing quite a lot. Mind you, Lash Legend and her tag partner.
What, her tag partner's gone?
Jakara Jackson.
Jackson was one of the releases.
Yes,
yeah.
she was on the releases, but they were there for one, then they disappeared.
Yeah.
I wonder if it will happen. But they were more tag. These can work. Perez and Giulia can
usually
work
by themselves, yeah.
singularly, but apart from that, yeah, good. So we've got Money in the Bank starting.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll cover more of that in our musings video, which we will be dropping on Wednesday, so keep your eye out for that. If you want us to see us go into a little bit more detail about things.
Any thoughts or views you'd like to share, then please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below.
Once again, if you have watched, thank you very much.
And we'll see you Wednesday for a look at this past week in WWE and Saturday when we look at SmackDown.